And everyone, thank you for dialing in and welcome to an exclusive inside look at Ellis Preserve. So today we'll have the pleasure of diving into the vast history of the Ellis Preserve campus and Equus Capital Partners' role in executing their vision for the company's signature mixed-use development. Crew Greater Philadelphia is honored to present our sponsor, Equus Capital Partners, to guide you through the growth of Ellis Preserve from its origins as the Ellis College for Girls to its present incarnation as a unique master plan mixed-use campus. So joining us to present from Equus is Lynn McDowell and Neil Gallagher. Lynn joined Equus in February of 2013 and is currently its Director of Closing Administration. Lynn is a longtime member of Crew Greater Philadelphia, having served on numerous committees, as well as a chapter president in 2017. Neil serves as a vice president of Equus and the office leasing contact for Ellis Preserve. So before we begin our presentation, I want to take the opportunity to highlight our Crew Greater Philadelphia 2021 sponsors, as you can see highlighted on the slide that is currently being shared. These companies displayed allow our chapter to continue in our mission to support women in commercial real estate, and we're extremely grateful for your contribution, so thank you. Crew could not prosper without the generous support of the caring community of sponsors such as ours. So again, thank you for your participation in the Crew Greater Philadelphia sponsorship program. So at this time, I will hand over the presentation controls to Neil and Lynn of Equus Capital Partners. Please note that this panel discussion is being recorded. Also, during the course of the presentation, if you have a question that you'd like addressed, you can go ahead in the chat box and enter it there, and we will get to any questions or concerns during the Q&A portion of our presentation. So Neil and Lynn, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, you can take it away.
Great, thank you. I want to thank you for allowing us, and we welcome you to our home. And the one thing that Neil's profile does not tell you, he is our resident historian. And when you ask Neil about Ellis Preserve, he speaks about it with pride and distinction. So this will be a wonderful and informative program. Having grown up around here, I find this extremely interesting. I learn more all the time. So I would ask Neil to now give you the presentation.
Hi, everybody. Appreciate you having us join you for this hour today. Sorry we're a little bit late. Little IT snafu on our end. If today was bring your kid to work day, it would have been fine. Because just like at home, it's like, how do you do this? But we were able to work it out. So today we're going to talk about a little more than 100 years of Ellis Preserve, what it was, what it is, where it's going. And it's normally this, what we're going to show you today is actually several different presentations that have been pieced together that I give on a regular basis when we are in front of potential tenants considering space or future development opportunities here at Ellis Preserve. And I think it flows kind of nicely, and we're just going to jump right into it here. So let me move on. We're going to talk about the things that make Ellis Preserve a special place. Our location, the history, an overview of what the property was when we purchased it in 2004, what we've done so far, what we have created in terms of the day-to-day experience, which really is live, work, and play, and what we are going to do with our future development plans. And we bounced forward about 35 slides here, so let me just bounce back. Sorry about that. So let's talk about location. Ellis Preserve is in Newtown Square at the intersection of routes 252 and Westchester Pike, which is Pennsylvania Route 3. To the casual observer, you may think, oh, it's a little difficult location to get to. But if you look at this map, you can see we are located directly next door to what is considered ground zero in the suburban office market, and that is Radnor, which is a confluence of Route 30 and the Blue Route, or for those of you from out of the area, I-476. Radnor is home to a number of large corporations as well as small entrepreneurial businesses, but Radnor has, as I like to say, a little bit of hair on it, and that comes in the form of traffic congestion and unfriendly business taxes. Radnor features an earned income tax as well as a gross receipts tax. Newtown Square is an entirely different township. Immediately adjacent to that, we do not have the traffic congestion. We do not have any unfriendly business taxes. We do not have an earned income tax. And this community of Newtown Square really had no town center until we got here and created one. And if you look at some of the local roads, such as Westchester Pike or Pennsylvania Route 3, in the post-World War II era, there was, the way you developed real estate was you build out right to the road. And Westchester Pike is largely built out with homes right up to the 4-lane highway, as well as small strip shopping centers. There was no town center for Newtown Square. The good news about our location is the business-friendly tax environment, but also our proximity to some of the other destinations along what is known as Philadelphia's main line. We're immediately adjacent to Radnor, and if you wanted to be right in the heart of Radnor, you can be there from Ellis Preserve in 5 to 7 minutes via the back roads. It's not a case where you need to go down Westchester Pike and up to the Blue Route to Route 30. You can simply cut through some of the neighborhoods, and it really is scenic with some of the area's renowned golf clubs, such as Aronimink Golf Club, and we are in very close proximity to a number of higher education institutes, such as Villanova University. We have a special relationship with Villanova University. The chairman of our company, Dan DeLella, is not only an alum, but the real estate school at Villanova is known as the Daniel M. DeLella School of Real Estate. So that is our location and our advantage, being so close to Radnor, but not in it. Ellis Preserve is really replete with history. This campus, which was originally 318 acres, was home to the Charles Ellis School for Fatherless Girls. From those of you that are from the Philly region, you're probably familiar with Girard College in Center City, Philadelphia, which is a school for fatherless boys. Well, Charles Ellis and his father, back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, had a horse-drawn streetcar business, and you can see where I'm waving my hand here on the slide, in the city of Philadelphia. That company has since morphed into what is SEPTA, our regional mass transit company today. And in fact, Charles Ellis and his father built the first Market Frankford subway and elevated line. Charles Ellis died without a family and left his fortune to found this school for fatherless girls with the provision that it be located along a rail line. And back at that time, along the median strip in Westchester Pike, there was a trolley that ran from Upper Darby, which is the first suburb right outside of Philadelphia, out to Westchester. So the school purchased 318 acres and began building the school that Charles Ellis stipulated in his will. The campus has a number of historic old buildings which we have preserved, one of which is the Square Tavern, which you see highlighting up in the upper center, which was home to Benjamin West, who is a renowned artist. If you just Google him, he's done work at the Vatican, he's done work for the King of England. This was his home. It became a tavern, and that one little building, which is still on our campus here, and we have gone through efforts to preserve historically, was quote-unquote, the center of Newtown Square. The school was in operation. It was a residential school, and some of these stone buildings that you see here, we refer to as the cottages, were actually the girls' dormitories. And the curriculum of the school was largely home economics for these girls, in the hopes that someday in the 1950s they would get married, put on an apron, and stay home, as my mother used to do way back when. Unfortunately, as we move into the 1970s, the school became somewhat beleaguered financially. They were out of money. They were forced to sell the land to Arco Chemical. Arco Chemical, I don't think exists anymore, but they moved from Center City, Philadelphia to this campus and built most of the large buildings that are currently on campus today, comprising about 650,000 square feet. The good news about that sale is that even today, the proceeds of that sale still fund scholarships for fatherless girls. And the Alumni Association of the Charles Ellis School is alive and active, and not in the last year, but every other year we have hosted their annual alumni meeting, and it's really kind of fun to see these women come out here and reminisce about their days in the school. When our office was in one of the cottage buildings before we built our headquarters here, they would come in and we would just give them the run of the building for the whole day. And it was so funny to hear them talk about sneaking up to the attic of the building where we have record storage, and they would go up there and they would smoke and hide from the matron who was their supervision in their residential life. So moving on, Arco, as I mentioned, built most of all these buildings back here. This was their headquarters building, and all of the rest of this was research and development, essentially being petrochemical lab buildings. This one building that's hidden behind these trees here was the chairman's building. Arco, not long after they moved here, began divesting a number of business units and really didn't need all of the real estate. What you can see in the foreground are 3 of the 6 remaining cottage buildings. The other 3 are over here, and the school administration building. All of these still exist today. All of this exists. And Arco, in the early 80s, began considering the sale of the property because they did not want to be in the real estate business and did not need everything that was here. At the same time, SAP was searching all of North and South America for a headquarters of the Americas. They're a German-based software company. They chose Newtown Square, Pennsylvania, as their headquarters, and they're still here today. They chose the headquarters for a number of reasons. The workforce surrounding this site in Delaware County and the counties beyond, Chester County and Montgomery County, was an extremely talented and diverse workforce, and the cost of living in this area was such that they did not have to pay these employees a fortune. Even more so, another draw for them was the infrastructure that Arco Chemical infused into this campus when they developed it as their corporate headquarters. They brought in true redundant power supplies to this campus. We have 2 separate and distinct feeds from Pico substations here with automatic switchover, so that in the event of any incident that would cause a power failure or loss of one of the substations, without even a blink in electricity, you're automatically switched over to the other substation. An example of that is back in the 2014 ice storm when suburban Philadelphia was largely without power for more than a week. Ellis Preserve was fully in business and our tenants were able to come to work. I actually brought my kids out here every day, and they sat in our cafe with cable and heat and light, and they were thrilled. So the amount of power, because this was a research and development facility, enabled SAP, when they constructed their headquarters on the other side of the campus, to create an environment where this is now their worldwide data center. All data for SAP worldwide flows through Newtown Square, Pennsylvania. And what you can see in the upper left corner of the picture here is the beginnings of the construction of the SAP headquarters and their parking garage. They've since expanded the parking facilities and built a second building beyond that. So this was Ellis Preserve in 2004 when we purchased the campus. As soon as we purchased the campus, we began what we do best, and that is repositioning existing assets or functionally obsolete buildings and making them functional for today's needs and today's tenants. One of the buildings we've renovated twice since then was the Ellis Athletic Center, which is a 22,000 square foot full service athletic facility open to the public, and we have about 2,500 members, both tenants of the campus, residents of the housing that's now on the campus, as well as the greater community. We are going to take a greater look in a second at what we have done in terms of historic preservation for the cottage buildings, and then we went through and began repositioning each of the office buildings that ARCO built, and we're going to touch on each of these briefly in the coming slides. One of the things that was critical to bringing people to the Ellis Preserve campus was creation of amenities. None existed on the campus. When we purchased the campus, there were 3 companies here and approximately 320 people that worked on the campus. There was no dining, there was nothing. So we created 4 hubs for community involvement. They are Founders Hall Cafe, which actually celebrates the life of Charles Ellis and the Ellis Preserve history. We created a 20,000 square foot early childhood education center, which is Chesterbrook Academy. We've created the ballroom at Ellis Preserve, which we're going to talk about in a second, and this is just one of a number of shots of the interior of the Ellis Athletic Center. So talking about preserving Ellis School history, these buildings, these stone cottages, were the girls' dormitories. There were bedrooms on the upper floors and living and dining rooms and a community room on the first floor, as well as each building having a matron that lived in the facility as well. It would have been easier and probably a little financially better for us to have scraped these, but you can't build this kind of facility. So we invested more than $1 million in each one of these small buildings, and this is how historic preservation has come about. These buildings are now positioned as individual office buildings. This building in particular is home to Wilson Legal Solutions. But if you look, there's a sign out front that says Elizabeth Fry, and down here is a little placard that talks about Elizabeth Fry. When each of these buildings was dedicated as part of the school gave the girls the opportunity to select an historic American woman after which they would name the building. We researched the names that were applied to each of these buildings and have brought that history back to life for each of the 6 remaining cottages. This is what the first floor, the living room of the cottage, looked like when the girls lived there. And this is what it looks like today as first-class office space. One of the larger buildings, a 240,000 square foot building, which was one of the lab buildings for ARCO's research and development, this is the condition that it was in when we purchased the campus. Really a functionally obsolete facade. The windows all leaked, the roof leaked. There was no solar reflectivity on any of this glass, and in the summertime it was incredibly hot, and in the wintertime it was very uncomfortably cold. So we ripped the front off of this building, we totally gutted the interiors, and we set about creating Class A office space. The finished product, as you can see here, is a modern Class A office building with curtain wall facade, and this picture takes you through the various renovation steps. What we started with, the process of removing the front of the building, installing new curtain wall, creating a building lobby, and the finished product that you see here today. This building is fully leased. It's the headquarters of Trinity Healthcare, formerly known as Catholic Health East. We also had the headquarters of Pet Plan, which was the first pet health insurance company in America, and they are here with us as well. And there's a number of other companies in the building.
And their doggies.
And yes, Lynn's saying, and their doggies. We have probably 35 million square feet of office space across the United States. And in every lease but one, there's a strict stipulation that you cannot bring animals into the building. Guess where that one lease is? Right here with Pet Plan. And actually, I will say, they are allowed 5 cats or dogs on any given day to be in the building, and they are our best behaved tenants.
They truly are.
This is what the interior of one of those lab buildings looked like when we purchased the building. And in that same space, we created a beautiful Class A multi-tenant office building lobby. This was a process photo of one of the floors. It's a 2-story building with a number of atriums or skylights that penetrate to bring light down to the first floor. And this is the finished product for the Catholic Health or Trinity Healthcare headquarters building. In the rear of the building, it was actually kind of unique for suburban Philadelphia, there's 32-foot clear space. This was ARCO's pilot plant or test lab where they would put new chemicals, coatings, finishes through the paces. We went in, cleaned it environmentally, removed obsolete materials and equipment. This space is now fully leased. We have 40,000 square feet of eyeglass manufacturing in here with Davis Vision. There is a lab with Quest Diagnostics in a piece of this space. We have another life sciences company, Etho Biosciences, who has lab facilities in here. And then we also created the Founders Hall Cafe in this space by laying in a mezzanine or a second floor halfway up. So we have a full-service cafeteria or restaurant, if you will, with a full commercial kitchen, wood-fired pizza oven, conference facilities in there, fireplace in the corner, pool table, shuffleboard, et cetera, et cetera. So there's plenty of opportunities for our tenants to socialize in there. In my mind, one of the most interesting things that has happened on this campus involves this building right here. When ARCO built this campus, they created a central utility plant. This is where the 2 electric feeds come in. This is where the water source for the entire campus comes in. Everything. Every building on this campus was lit, heated, cooled, watered, you name it, from this building. And at the time we purchased the campus, our annual electric bill was $11 million, and this building required 25 full-time engineers to operate the building 24 hours a day. As part of our redevelopment of the existing facilities, we took every single building off of this central utility plant one by one, installed high-efficiency operating HVAC and electrical systems in each building, and through that process, took our annual electric bill from $11 million a year down to $2 million a year, our staffing from 25 engineers down to 5 engineers, and then we had this building that we didn't really need anymore, but we needed an additional amenity for the campus now that we were attracting more and more tenants each day. And it is now Chesterbrook Academy. So there's a waiting list to get in. And this building is actually immediately adjacent to our new headquarters building, so it's kind of nice to look out and see the kids in the schoolyard outside playing through the day. And a number of our own employees take advantage of this. So for them, every day is bringing a kid to work day. The school administration building is really an iconic center of the campus. This is the building in which all the girls attended their classes, and the administrators for the Ellis College had their offices. It was a 2-story structure, and when we purchased it, ARCO had done a minor renovation and created a small auditorium inside for company meetings. It was really stale. It was old, it was tired, the roof leaked, there was nothing good about the building except it was a beautiful exterior. We have entered into a long-term lease with a company called Finley Catering, you may know as the operators of the Crystal Tea Room at the Wanamaker Building downtown, the Ballroom at the Ben, the old Ben Franklin Hotel, and a number of other venues. They were looking for a suburban venue for weddings and other events, and that building is now the Ballroom at Ellis Preserve. Pre-COVID, if you wanted to have a wedding on our campus here on a Saturday or Sunday, you had a 2.5-year wait before you could get one of those days. This picture shows the interior of that building, or a portion of that building, as the Arco Auditorium. There were other small conference rooms that they had in here as well. When we converted it to the Ballroom, we removed the second floor. We created structural steel up in the ceiling, which required opening the roof and raising the ceiling and installing the steel via crane through the roof. And this is a photograph, not a drawing. This is a photograph of the Ballroom at Ellis Preserve, the interior, and it's obviously set for an evening wedding. So it's a beautiful facility, and it actually supplements the campus, the office campus, as a place to host business functions during the week, as well as nights, weekends, what have you, when the space is available. One of the last buildings that was occupied by Arco Chemical and the division that they had in here was Lyondell, was this structure you see right here. And they also had a number of outbuildings where they stored chemicals for testing and did some weird science, whatever they did in there. And Arco left this building, I believe, in 2012. And we were going to get into a situation where we just did typical office renovation like we did with the other building that I showed you earlier. And then as we were developing our plans for this building, we got into a discussion with Sunoco. Sunoco's headquarters was in Philadelphia, coincidentally in the same building where Arco had been years before, coincidentally in the same building where we were as well, 1500 Market Street in Philadelphia. We reached an agreement with Sunoco to relocate to Ellis Preserve, and if you look at the back of this building, it's all corrugated steel and loading docks, and there's nothing good or attractive about it. Today, this is what that building looks like. We put a front on the back, removed all the buildings, and created a beautiful parking lot out here for the employees of Sunoco. And this is the headquarters for Sunoco, or now that Sunoco has been sold to Sunoco Logistics, it's the Sunoco Logistics headquarters. This is some of the interior of that building, and it's really kind of a unique design, and this was done at a point where people were looking to change the configuration of office space from just your button-down drop ceiling, every room looks the same, to something really interesting and creative. And they employed a number of different systems here. They have a floating cloud ceiling in this section here, removable partitions which actually open this space up into a meeting area large enough to fit the entire Sunoco company in one area for company meetings. They employed some sections of drop ceiling with open areas to increase the sense of open space. They have other areas where there is no ceiling at all and extensive use of glass. So it's really an inviting, attractive building to walk into. And shortly after this building was completed, Sunoco announced that they were moving their headquarters down to Texas, which is where they are now. So we are actually in discussions with them to potentially take this building back. And with the renewed interest these days in life sciences, since we have the infrastructure and the floor loading capabilities here, we're looking at the potential to convert this building into life sciences lab space. We are always trying to position ourselves to be at the forefront of what is coming next in real estate. And one of the advantages of Ellis Preserve is everything that you can do in real estate, you do here. We refer to this campus as our real estate laboratory. Everything you can do is here. Historic preservation, strategic repositioning of functionally obsolete buildings, building new buildings, building residential, building retail, hotel, you name it, we do it, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that we've built on the campus. So in the 3 short years since 2004, this is how the campus has changed. SAP fully built out their portion of the campus. SAP, I forget if I mentioned earlier, ARCO sold the campus to SAP. SAP sold the campus to us in 2004, but of the 318 acres, they only sold us 218, which is this portion here. SAP kept 100 acres for themselves, and this is their North and South American headquarters over here. Some of the things that have changed, all of these buildings have now been touched. Every last one has been repositioned, reconditioned, and these buildings that were built in the late 70s and early 80s are effectively brand new Class A office buildings. And one of the first new structures that we built on the campus is right here. It was a 130,000 square foot medical office building for Mainline Health, which has turned out to be really a tremendous asset or amenity for an office campus. If you think about, a day when you might have to get a chest x-ray or a blood test or something like that, and you have to go somewhere and park, whether it's Bryn Mawr Hospital or what have you, you're going to lose half of your day. This building offers everything from chemotherapy to every imaginable doctor's practice, radiological imaging, testing, blood test, everything. It's all in there. And parking is free, and for people that work on this campus, it's a 2-minute drive or a 10-minute walk to get over here, and you're in and out of the building with your test complete in 30 minutes. This is a picture of the main entrance for the Mainline Health building. So where are we? We've come from 2 companies and 320 employees, and now that we've repositioned all these buildings, we have 35 companies and 3,500 employees. This, as you can imagine, is the interior of Pet Plan and their animal-oriented decorations there. So we find ourselves at an inflection point. We've touched everything on the campus. We've improved everything on the campus. We've preserved history. We've achieved success in repositioning all of the existing buildings in the campus. How do we execute our vision? And we execute that vision via a live, work, play environment. Ellis Preserve, as the Charles Ellis School 40-some years ago, there were people living here full-time. It was time to bring that concept back. And in doing so, the live portion of live, work, and play, one of our subsidiary companies is Madison Apartments. And we set about development of the residential portion of the campus to include 252 Madison luxury apartment homes and 142 townhomes in 2 different styles. The first was 76 townhomes on land that we sold to Toll Brothers, and they are just building the last 3 of those townhomes right now. They're fully sold out. We also sold a strip of land to Rockwell Developers, who built 46 stacked townhomes, which line a newly created Charles Ellis Drive through the campus. So it's literally 2 two-story townhomes atop each other. They too are sold out. We also developed plans in 2004 when we purchased the campus to create a town center for Newtown Square. Unfortunately, a competing developer down the road who had 500 acres of raw land thought that our idea was so great that he wanted to do it. He set about challenging our approvals in court. He tied us up for 10 years in court. We made it all the way through the entire process, won every case, we won every appeal, and the day we won our appeal, or we won his appeal, in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, we released the contractors to clear the land on phase 1 of the town center, which is these 15 acres right here. Less than a year later, you see Whole Foods in operation. Several stores here, which include Ulta and Pennsylvania Wine and Spirits, a great restaurant known as Fire Point Grill, Hilton Garden Inn, which is, it's full of business clients during the week and wedding attendees on the weekend, and then a number of other stores over here, which include Mod Pizza, Zoe's Kitchen, Chipotle, FedEx store, AT&T, and a few other things. And we also built a new Wawa because you got to have a Wawa. So that was phase one of the town center, fully leased, great success. And you can see some raw land here. We're going to talk about that. You can also see construction of the Madison Apartments up in this section. These are just some shots of the existing stores in the town center. Phase one of the retail is completed, 110,000 square feet. Our remaining buildable square footage for the campus is 335,000 square feet. We have since increased that and taken some of what was going to be allocated towards retail and redistributed that to additional residential space, and we also moved some of that available buildable square footage over to the AmeriHealth headquarters building that we're going to talk about in a second. These are photos of the completed Madison Apartments. These are not renderings. The photos are so clear that they actually look like renderings. And it's just a great community, fire pits scattered throughout, central clubhouse, swimming pool, exercise facilities, and we are 97% leased here, and our annual retention rate is, I believe, in the high 80s. Our demographic that we expected to be young families and young professionals actually turned out to be people in their late 50s and 60s who decided it was time to sell the family house and just become empty nesters and enjoy life. This is a picture of one of the completed Toll Brother townhomes on campus. And this is an overview of some of the construction that took place beginning in 2019. You see the completed and operating Mainline Health Medical Office building. You see the beginnings of construction for a firehouse for land that we donated to Newtown Square. The Newtown Square Fire Department was really in a postage stamp firehouse on Route 252. They sought many locations and were faced with, not in my backyard, from the residents near there, as they were seeking a new firehouse location. And we said, let's solve this problem, and we brought them on campus here. And you can also see the AmeriHealth headquarters building under construction in the background. This piece of ground here, it comprises 14 acres of land that will be permanently preserved as open space. It looks disturbed now. It's just a distribution of topsoil that we put in there to level out some of the dips and valleys that were in there, and is now an open green area. The AmeriHealth Caritas headquarters building, 378,000 square feet. This was the rendering of what the building was scheduled to look like. And by the way, we've just moved into the work section of live, work, and play. This is the completed building. This photograph was taken, I think, in early January. And they have moved in with limited occupancy right now. They're phasing their employees in, and it is their full intention that they will return to the office hopefully in the next couple months as we work through vaccinations and the end of this pandemic. This is the rendering of the Newtown Square Fire Company and the finished product. Really turned out nice, and it's a beautiful asset to have on the campus. This is a updated aerial with the town center complete, Madison Apartments, phase one complete, all of the existing office buildings, the stone buildings from the school in the center of campus, and the dedicated open area with the SAP in the far distance and AmeriHealth under construction there. So we move into the play phase. We have the operating Hilton Garden Inn with its restaurants in-house. We've also opened this campus to the community. When we purchased the campus in 2004, there were guard gates at the two entrances to the campus. We maintained the guard houses because they were beautiful stone buildings, but we removed the gates, and we've actually invited the community into the campus, whether it's to come here and walk your dog on a Saturday, join the Newtown Square Historic Society annual celebration of Newtown Square history on the first Saturday in June every year, work out at the exercise stations sponsored by Ellis Athletic Center that are scattered about the one of 5 different exercise, jogging, running, biking trails that we've created through the campus and out into the community. Or, as I discovered one day, at the end of the day, one of our tenants formed an intramural league with other tenants on the campus where they went out and rented giant balls that you actually wear, and it was kind of a soccer ball with these people running around, laughing, having a ball on the 14 acres of open space out front. So it's a campus where, in normal times, the tenants really engage with each other, and this is just an example of the kind of fun that they had. So through this process and up to the creation of the Equus Capital Partners headquarters, which we moved out here, it'll be 3 years ago next month, from Center City, Philadelphia, and including the employees at AmeriHealth Caritas, we've gone from first 3 companies, 320 employees, to 35 companies, 3,500 employees. Today we're at 55 companies and 8,500 employees that in normal times come to work here at Ellis Preserve every day. This is our headquarters building. This is where Lynn and I work every day. As we rebrand, our name was originally BPG Properties, and a number of years ago we rebranded ourselves as Equus Capital Partners. And if you think of the word Equus, it's in keeping with equine or horse, and as part of our branding, we designed our headquarters in the image of a gentleman's barn. And this is actually the view that I look out of my office at every day, and it's just really cool to see all of this wood. So, the future. What happens now? Oh, wait, there's more. Where are we going here? We are going to the future. We have goals set from now through 2024. The goals outlined for 2021 are already done. We've completed the punch list and turned over the AmeriHealth Caritas headquarters. 30 days from now, we'll have completed our 3rd phase of another $4.5 million worth of offset road improvements to improve Westchester Pike and Route 252 with widening and left turn lanes and timed traffic lights that will really enhance traffic flow through the area. And we have broken ground on our final phase of residential, which will be an additional 200 Madison luxury apartment homes and 63 urban-style townhomes on land that we are conveying to Rockwell Builders that we worked with in the last phase. Next year, we will complete the first phase of those townhomes. We will complete our final phases of off-site road improvements, and we will break ground on the commercial portion of the final phase of Ellis Preserve, which includes 78,000 square feet of shopping and dining venues, a second hotel, which is flagged as a Marriott AC, and an additional conference center that will be operated by Finley Catering as well. And one highlight that we're going to hit on at the end of this presentation, which was inspired by our headquarters building, a 100,000 square foot, 5-story mass timber office building. And a mass timber office building has no steel. It's going to be an incredible development. We're going to learn more about that in a minute. And then in 2023 and 2024, we will complete the final apartments, townhomes, and the commercial aspect of the village at Town Center. So we'll really have spanned more than 100 years at that point, from 1919 through 2024. This is a site plan. This is the complete existing phase, first phase of the Town Center. the Mainline Health Medical Office Building, the open space, the Stone Cottage buildings, firehouse, and then this will be the final phase of the village at Ellis Preserve. Residential townhomes here, apartments, the conference center, hotel, mass timber office building, and the dining and retail sections here. This is an overview of what the final phase of the town center is going to look like. A lot of open space for gathering, community involvement, sitting outside, listening to a band or what have you that might be playing on a Friday afternoon, or throwing a frisbee out there with your kids. Marriott AC Hotel in the distance, along with the mass timber office building, and just more scenes throughout the town center. Which brings us back to our headquarters building, and the fact that our headquarters building has actually inspired what will be one of the crowning achievements that no one has done in the Philadelphia area, creation of a mass timber office building. When we moved here, we started inviting our clients and investors and tenants and friends to come and see our new headquarters building, and the universal reaction from everyone was, how can I work in a place like this? It's so cool, it's open, it's airy, you can smell the wood. How can I do that? So we started thinking about what do we want to do to create an environment that we could lease to other tenants so that they could work in the same thing. Now, if you look around here, there's a couple things to point out. Our building is not a mass timber office building. This is structural steel. Mass timber office buildings do not have structural steel. These trusses that you see are engineered, but one of the coolest things is all of the other wood that you see up here, which is the base of our ceiling, and if I can show you a picture of some windowsills and some of the furniture in here, all of this wood is 200 years old. It's reclaimed from a project that we have up in Reading, Pennsylvania, which many of you may have known in a former life as the Vanity Fair Outlets. Today, it's known as the Berkshire Knitting Mills. It is a totally repositioned historic renovation of those outlet buildings. We had to get rid of two of the structures, but instead of demolishing, we took them apart piece by piece, reclaimed the wood, and brought it to life again in our own home. So as we would go through and develop projects around the Philadelphia area, we tried to create something that was special. One of the first spec developments was 304 Falls, which we positioned as the Four Seasons of office space. This came online at a time when the market was really in a downturn, the early 2000s, I think it was 2003, while other competing developers were trying to cut rate and remove amenities. We started adding amenities, and we maintained our rate. We leased it up in its entirety, and we sold this building for a record price. We moved on to our next project, which was 1000 Continental in King of Prussia. It was the first Silver LEED certified spec office building. We incorporated all the great things that we had at 304 Falls, showing the amenities and the service. There was a concierge there, but we also made it a smart building. This building can be controlled from anywhere in the world via a laptop or a phone. It has an energy management system that is so efficient that if you look at a typical office building where electricity use is about $2.50 per square foot per year, this building came in at $1.46 per square foot per year. We moved on to experiential design at Ellis Preserve that we've talked about, live, work, play, community, and then we decide what are we going to do next. And next is mass timber, or as we coined the phrase, a trophy timber building, or the next class of office space. You had Class A, Class B, Class C, trophy class. This is going to be Class T squared, trophy and timber. Why would you build an office building out of wood? What about fire? Where did this idea come from? This idea came from the government of Austria. Their largest export was pulp. And as society went paperless, their economy started to take a hit. They're like, what are we going to do with all this wood? They came up with a concept called cross-laminated timber. The simplest example of that would be plywood, which is strips of wood glued together in different directions that provide strength. You need to think of this as plywood that doesn't look like unfinished plywood. It looks like finished furniture, but is about a foot thick. So what happens? What is the benefit? What is the sustainability of using timber? Number one, the environmental benefits, carbon sequestration. If a tree has spent its entire life taking carbon out of the atmosphere and it dies and falls over in the forest and starts to decay, all of that carbon goes back into the atmosphere. When you harvest this wood, that carbon is contained forever in the wood. It never goes back into the atmosphere. When you build an office building out of steel and concrete, you create carbon emissions simply by the fact that you're making these things. It doesn't happen in a mass timber office building. It's sustainable in that the wood used for these buildings is a crop, just like Christmas trees. They're planted for a purpose and they're harvested when it's right. So how often does that happen? We've calculated the amount of wood that will be used in the mass timber office building here at Ellis Preserve, and also another one we're going to build out in Wayne. It comes to harvest potential every one day in the forests of North America. So it's a crop, and it's entirely environmentally friendly. It's the sensory benefits. It's warm. It's a great place to come. If you come to our building, you just get a great feeling when you walk into our building. You will have that in a mass timber office building. What about the safety? What about fire? Mass timber burns at 1 inch per hour. And as it burns, it forms a layer of carbon on the outside, which prevents oxygen from getting to the wood, which prevents the fire from totally eating up the entire piece of mass timber. It is as strong as steel, and it is actually safer in a fire than steel. And how can I say that? 30 years ago last week was the anniversary of the One Meridian Tower burning downtown Philadelphia. That building sat like an eyesore for years because the steel was heated to such a temperature that it actually deflected and could no longer support weight. And it took them 2 years to figure out how to dismantle that building. If you look at the World Trade Center, steel that heats to a certain temperature is ultimately going to fail and collapse. In a building that is on fire made out of mass timber, the wood makes sounds as it burns, and if the wood's going to fail, it makes loud popping sounds, and the people working to put the fire out know it's time to get out of there. It's a safe environment. Plus, the building's fully sprinkled. So, as I mentioned, the construction benefits, it has the strength of steel. The construction efficiency is actually better than a steel and concrete building. It takes less time to build because it arrives on site in pre-assembled pieces, and it's put into place via crane with a crew of 20 versus a crew of several hundred. We talked about how it performs in fires. This is just a visualization of a piece that has been burnt in a UL test lab. The center core was still cold. It's sustainable, it's clean, natural, renewable. This was the calculation that I mentioned for all the wood that was used in the building, which is the equivalent of permanently sequestering 340 metric tons of wood that, of carbon dioxide that would go back to the atmosphere and decay. It's equivalent to taking 201 cars off the road for a year, and it reduces the energy greenhouse emissions equivalent to 90 homes a year. I think I'm starting to lose my voice.
Yeah.
This is what the inside of this building will look like. It's just beautiful. You still use drywall in some areas, maybe on your perimeter walls, maybe the restroom cores, but what you want to see is the wood. This is actually the floor above. You don't see wires, you don't see cables, you see a little bit of duct. What you're looking at is the wood. This was a biophilic study, and we talk about this at length in our presentations on this building. The takeaway here is the green line represents wood and all the words associated with it: warm, relaxing, genuine, uplifting, timeless, versatile, et cetera, et cetera. and you look at cold, harsh boring, and you're looking at steel and concrete and some of the other typical construction materials. Basically, wood is good. It's a nice place to go to work. This is what our building will look like in the center of the town center. 100,000 square feet, 20,000 feet per floor. This is an image of the building's two-story lobby. You see the extensive wood. This is actually the structural material of the building, as well as the finished material of the building. Another view of interior tenant spaces. A view of the town center with the mass timber building and the hotel. More town center. And then if you think back to what the original aerial was of Ellis Preserve, none of anything here existed, none of anything here existed, and SAP didn't exist. So this is our final site plan for the overall campus. And over the years, we've been privileged to receive a number of awards. Beginning in 2008, we were awarded a citation, a resolution by the Delaware County Council for historic preservation efforts associated with the Square Tavern and the historic buildings of the Ellis School for Girls. In 2018, we were awarded by the Philadelphia Business Journal Suburban Office Deal of the Year for our build-to-suit lease with AmeriHealth Caritas. In 2019, based on the increase in employees coming to this campus and the tax revenue generated by the campus, the Delaware County Chamber of Commerce awarded us their Economic Development Prize. And perhaps the greatest of all, in 2020, was the CREW, Greater Philadelphia Community Impact Award for the AmeriHealth Caritas headquarters at Ellis Preserve. I heard cheer. So Ellis Preserve is all about creating community and enriching history. And that is the story of Ellis Preserve. If I still have time, and you guys can tell me if I'm out of time or not, there are 2 short videos associated with the AmeriHealth Caritas that I'd like to share with you. Tell me if that's okay. Is that good? Somebody just shake their head yes or no.
Yeah. Yeah, go right ahead,
Okay.
Neil.
All righty, so now I got to figure out how to stop sharing and share again. Let me take this to full screen. I just think this is so cool. If you look in the background, you see the Mainline Health Building out there, and you just see an open plot of ground. So in the next minute, we're going to go through 2 years.
Let her rip.
Unfortunately, our IT guys did not realize it was a 5-story building, and they aimed the camera a little low.
They got the base.
What's interesting about this project is we delivered it on time and under budget without any experience in dealing with a global pandemic. And we had to learn during this process how to deal with managing the flow of several hundred contractors going in and out of the building every day. And when one man would test positive, and everyone was tested every day, when one man would test positive, the job was shut down. And we had to go in and clean a project that was under construction. And that brings us to our final, which is, where is it? I just lost my screen here.
Uh-oh.
So this video was taken just about a month ago. It shows the completed campus and how it sits, the completed building and how it sits in relation to the overall campus. You can see the green open space out in the distance and the existing office buildings on the campus here. So with that, that is pretty much all I have.
That's great. Thanks, Neil. It was really very interesting. We have just a couple of questions if you have a few minutes in our chat. The first question that we had was, who was the architect and design team on the renovation of the Arco building?
For the Arco building for Sunoco, or the Arco building that is now a multi-tenant office building, the one where we ripped off the front and all
It was
that?
the multi-tenanted office building was when the question popped up.
Believe it or not, there were a number of different architects involved in that project, from the space planning architects. The one that I absolutely know for sure was Francis Kaufman Architects out of downtown Philadelphia, and they also did both the interior and exterior of Sunoco, and they were selected by AmeriHealth Caritas. We had no control over this. They were selected by AmeriHealth to design this building.
And how many people can the ballroom accommodate seated?
For a stand-up cocktail reception, I think it's 325, and depending on your seating configurations and how big of a dance floor, about 250, I think. If you really wanted to know, you can go to our website, ellispreserve.com, which has, under amenities, there's a link to the ballroom, or you could just contact Finley Catering, and they can give you all the details on all the different configurations, including the opportunities they have for, if you wanted to have an exterior function, they have hosted weddings actually out on the 14 acres out front. They also have this small side patio connected to the building that has a bar out there. You could have a small cocktail party outside. So they have a number of different sizes that they can accommodate over there.
Okay. And we also had a question about the architect on the new timber building, the mass timber building that you're constructing at the preserve.
We're using D2 Architects. D2 designed the interior and exterior of our headquarters office building. And they partnered with us on our investigation of mass timber. And this process for investigating the mass timber actually involved about a dozen of us hopping on a plane and flying up to Canada to meet with some people that have actually completed mass timber buildings up there. We took IMC Construction with us, D2, as well as our entire in-house development team up to Canada to evaluate this. And we are proceeding with the team that we have come to trust in building both the mass timber building at Ellis Preserve, which is 100,000 feet, and another mass timber building at 675 Swedesford Road in Wayne, right near the King of Prussia Town Center. And that's going to be 150,000 square feet.
Okay, that's great. Well, I think we'll wrap up the webinar. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Neil and Lynn. This was extremely informative, very interesting, and really some beautiful, beautiful buildings for us all to take a look at today. So we really appreciate it. And thanks to all our attendees for coming to learn about the Ellis Preserve today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, and come and visit us out here.